the ultimate deck podcast. Need a show about outdoor living? This is where it's at with your hosts Shane Chapman and Way Laurent. Thank you for tuning in. Now let the show begin. Yeah, the ultimate deck podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the Ultimate Deck Podcast, everybody. Wade and Shane here on a Monday evening, 10:08 p.m. Late night.
What are you working on?
It's of course not when you're going to be listening to this, but that's what time it is when we're recording this, and probably 2 more episodes. We're going to pull a late one tonight and get a few stacked up here.
Are we just going to do short ones though, right?
Yeah,
Let's
just short
quick ones.
We always say short ones, but here we go.
We won't talk as much at the start.
We're going to the Yorkton Spring Expo this week, so that's going to tie us up a little bit, and then you're gone. You are gone to Edmonton next week.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
For WRLA meetings. So we're like, we better get ahead of this and record a few ahead of time to make sure we don't.
I'm going to play my very first round of golf Monday.
Are you?
Yeah.
And?
I had to take my clubs to Edmonton.
And
I'm going to play with my buddy Colin from Windsor Plywood.
Okay.
I don't know who else he's got. He's got some other people lined up. Maybe Kev, who's on the board as well. So anyways, we're going to play golf.
Are you excited?
Yeah. So
Or
here's
is that first round frustrating?
No. The first round's always great. Here's what's going to be frustrating though. The golf clubs I always use, like my regular set and bag, is in Saskatoon. And the ones I've been using at indoor golf, which are not that good, that I don't like as much, are here. And I'm not going to Saskatoon
So
before
like you
I go
have
to.
2 full sets of golf clubs?
I have 3 full sets.
You have 3 full sets of golf clubs? Why do you have 3 full sets of golf clubs?
He who dies with the most toys wins.
That's not true.
You don't know that. Have you died?
No.
You don't know
But
that.
I'm pretty sure whoever's proverb that is didn't mean a whole bunch of the same effing toy. It wasn't like the guy who dies with 17 boats. No. The guy who has
Well, you got to have
different
a
toys.
wakeboard boat and a fishing boat. And so,
Except these are all just golf clubs.
yeah, but they're
Same
different.
activity.
Yeah, same activity, but they do. So the way it happened,
You're not going to talk me into thinking that that's a good idea.
the way it happened was I bought a new set of clubs like a few years ago, maybe like 6-7 years ago. And at the time I didn't want to get rid of my other set because there was always a chance that I would either own a cabin or I would own like another property somewhere. And so I was just going to have a second full set and I was going to leave them there.
You can't get the cabin because you spent all your money on 3 sets of golf
Well,
clubs.
that's not true. They were cheap. and then I traded a set from even earlier. And so like I had an old set that I never used. And then I bought one and I had the second set and was like, so now I have 2 sets and that was going great. And then I bought a third set and didn't sell off any of the other ones, but then traded one for a different set. So I have 3 full sets of clubs.
How much of a difference do you think between your first favorite set of clubs and your second favorite? Is it
Between
all mental?
No, between 1 and 3, there's some significant differences.
But between 1 and 2, what you want to play
No.
with and what you have with you.
Well, those are 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
Between 2 and 3, not much difference. But number 2 is full blade, like a full blade.
Okay.
Which is hard to hit.
Yeah.
And so it's not that bad when you're playing indoor golf because you don't lose golf balls at indoor golf. If you hit one bad, it's just like, well, it just still hits the
You
screen.
just duck and then
You
find
pick
it and go
But
again.
in the real world, if you hit it bad, it's gonzo.
Yeah.
So anyways.
Okay.
All of that to say, my excuses have already started and I'm a week out from
Yeah,
playing.
I can see that. Yeah, that's
I also don't have a putter, so I'm totally taking your putter. when I go
okay.
to- My second, I only have 1 putter. I have 3 sets of clubs.
I was trying to think of what putter I even have. And I was like, oh, wait, I bought a new one last year.
Yeah, I'm going to play it.
Yep.
I'll let you know how good it is.
I was going to offer you, you're like, my clubs are in Saskatoon. I was like, well, take these ones if you want. And then you're like, no, I got sets everywhere.
Yeah, I might take a driver though.
Sure.
Anyways,
They're
We'll
all
sort
here.
it out.
I can for sure tell you I'm not using them next week.
yeah.
So
Courses might be open here. You don't know.
I do want to golf more this year. That's for sure.
Get it.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to make that an effort.
Did you watch the eclipse today?
So I didn't. Yes, I did. Well, kind of. So I forgot. I didn't know what it was. I've heard all sorts of things about this eclipse, but I've never actually looked into when it was supposed to be. I just kind of didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, if it's going to be significant, then I'm going to notice it when it happens.
Right, because the lights will go out.
And I didn't notice that ever happened. But I picked up my 7-year-old from school today at 1:31 because the teachers are on strike at 1:31 every day.
Not every day.
Don't ask.
It's rolling blackouts. It's like California.
No,
right
but this week they're like full every day 1:31. Then you pick your kid up now.
For the whole week.
Whole week.
That's handy.
So anyways, at 1:31, I picked my son up today, 7-year-old. He gets in the van. He's like, Dad, can we go watch the solar apocalypse? And I was like, solar apocalypse? Oh, the eclipse. Yeah. Well, I think that's already done, buddy. It's like, just because I heard people talking about it last week, so I kind of assumed it was just like last week. So I had to look it up, and it was like, well, no, it's going to be over Regina between like 12 and 2.
Okay.
And it was 1:30. So I was like, okay, well, it was regular brightness out today, and it was behind a cloud. So I was like, I don't know that it's actually happening right now, but they did say that in Regina, it was only going to be 40% covered. 41% covered the sun. Not a full blackout here.
Right.
So we went home.
Obviously, there were full blackouts in the world somewhere.
Yeah. Did you see? So I'll talk about it in a second. We went home, and he's like, I want to go look at it. I was like, well, we can't look at the sun just directly. So I was like, let's get out the sunglasses.
Yeah,
and it's
idiot.
like, I walked outside with just my sunglasses, and I was like, nope, that's not going to do.
No, you have to have like.
Went back on, put another pair on. I was like, nah, it's not going to do either. I ended up with, I think, 6 or 7 pairs of sunglasses on. This is how I looked at the solar eclipse.
Aren't you supposed to like use like special glasses? Like
yeah,
special
but
eclipse
wait,
glasses?
It's now 1:40. This thing's
it's almost
over in
over.
20 minutes.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where to get these fancy sunglasses for. Like, who
has them?
you just run on down to Walmart and get some solar eclipse glasses? That
You
doesn't
should pick them
happen,
up tomorrow. They'll be on sale.
right? Yeah,
Wherever
for the
they
next one
are.
in 70 years. So anyways, I was like, well, how do we do this? How do we look at this thing? And I was like, just multiple layers of sunglasses, I guess. So I managed to get like 6 or I should have taken a picture of me looking
You
at this.
should have.
6 or 7 pairs of sunglasses stacked on top, like holding them all together. And I looked at it, and then that worked. I could see like a little concave piece of the sun covered at that point. So Avery threw them on too, and he had a look too. And then like 5 minutes later, it was gone because we were catching it right at the very end.
Right.
So we kind of saw it.
Kind of saw it.
Did you see it?
No.
Okay. I saw an image.
I was in the office. I actually like. It's funny how some things happen in the world, and I just like don't care.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't care.
Like, I don't think it got only dark enough here to be like the same as when clouds cover.
Yeah.
So like, you know,
Like I think if it was going to be a full eclipse, then I'd go look. I'd be like, well, that's pretty cool.
that'd be neat.
But
I saw this. Listen to this.
oh yeah, vodka.
Iced coffee, and I took an ice cube there, and I was like, I either have to talk with this or crunch it up. And I was like, I'll share it with the world. I saw a map, and it was a map of like
Oh, the path.
Airbnb vacancy rates across the United States for today, presumably, or last night. And essentially it was like red if there's 100% vacancy in these markets, like no Airbnbs available. And then green if there was vacancies. And it was like a direct path across like from like basically Mexico up through kind of the southern US and then towards the northeastern US. This path that the solar eclipse was supposed to be like where it's like perfectly like blacked out. And like Airbnb, like it was a major vacation planning thing. People were going to stay at places
That's
that was in the path
crazy.
of the solar eclipse. And so it's just like, it was a straight line of places.
Wild.
Book
And so
that.
that like mostly went up the east coast of the US, mostly?
Not the East Coast. It was like, I should see if I can find it here. Not that this is going to help anybody
Anyways.
on the podcast, but while we're chatting, I can look it up.
They also could look it up at that same time.
Yeah, they can look it up too.
Yeah. Well, that's
Airbnb solar eclipse map. This one right here. Look at this.
Look at that. That goes right across the
See that? So from
Yeah.
like
Texas.
eastern Texas all the way up to like basically New York, that path, like northeast across.
How
the states.
fantastic is that?
It's just like people were just booking shit up to go
That's
take it.
good.
So you see that we were not really anywhere near
Not even close.
the path of this thing. So we only got
Right.
we got the 40%. Oh well.
I saw some. I think Haney was posted a story on Instagram. He was wearing his welding mask.
Oh yeah, I
and
saw
looked
that
at
too.
it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Just when you thought he couldn't get any weirder.
of course that's what
Hey?
he used. Of course that was what he used.
It's
I didn't
actually
know
pretty
what
smart.
he would use, but then I saw it. It was like, well, yeah, for sure he would. So.
Okay, enough of that. Since we're trying to do 3 episodes tonight, we'll save some banter for the next ones. This episode, we're talking about, last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, we talked about the fact that we're into the hardscape space now.
Yeah. So now we're experts.
Now we're experts
Listen
in
up.
hardscapes too.
Nope. We're probably learning faster than some people.
By next year, we will be. But there's always this dilemma for us, or there used to be when we weren't in this space, of to when to like, somebody comes in and wants like, for example, a ground level deck. And we're like, okay, if that's what they want, we'll quote it and whatever. But in the back of our minds, kind of like, or we'd send them somewhere else and be like, yeah, this is probably better for a patio. But there was a bit of a conflict there. But now there doesn't have to be anymore because we offer both.
Yeah.
Building materials for both. So today's episode, we're talking openly and honestly about 5 reasons you would build a deck over a patio, and then conversely, 5 reasons why you'd build a patio over deck. And I don't have to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Because we sell both.
We sell both. And they both have the right time.
For sure they do.
Absolutely.
They're like,
the right time.
obviously their primary function is similar.
Yes.
They're kind of in a way competing, but often they're what? They're on the same starting lineup in the backyard. Like they're complementing each other. That's what I was trying to say.
Right? I was like, wow, one's higher than the other. One
they
never
can both
falls off a house.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be an either or. You can have both.
Yeah, and
But sometimes it is either or.
I really like that because I've done a few designs already this year where typically we would have put a deck on the lower level because that was the option.
Yeah.
And now it's so much better. I don't have to do that. I can say to people, listen, rather than building a deck 8 inches off the ground and having your choice rod out.
Yeah.
Here you go. Okay, go ahead.
Here's the 5 reasons why you should build a deck instead of a stupio.
A deck instead of a poopsio.
A deck instead of a patio. Number 1, elevated views. So like we asked for some assistance with this from ChatGPT, because why not? And I'm glad I did because it brought a couple pointers up that I wouldn't have thought of myself. But
you
elevated
are not
views,
as smart as GPT.
No, hell no.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's absolutely what happened.
Okay.
Yeah. But number 1 is elevated views. So this one, I wouldn't have thought of this one. I wouldn't have thought like, hey, I want to be up higher because of my view. But if you think about it, it's like you may be in a situation where maybe you do have a beautiful scenic view over the lake or something like that. And from down low at the ground level, maybe you can't see it as well. Maybe there's obstructions in the way, buildings potentially, or shrub or greenery or something. Yep. And by getting up and having that deck out the second story of your house, for example, or your cottage, allows you to maintain and see a better view of everything than had you just done a ground level patio. So that's a good point.
That's fantastic. See? I wouldn't have thought of that. What happens in my head is the exact opposite.
Right. Want to get down, hide from the neighbors because we live in the city.
Yes.
That's how city dwellers think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be one for patio for sure.
Absolutely. And just get over some trees. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Like I know that I for sure back when I was building, I for sure built some decks that were elevated up where it was like, being up. Cause also like sometimes you're up in the trees a little bit too. Like you, like just a cooler
the wind down.
Feeling being up in the trees rather than just being down ground level. Number 2 is adding levels to your outdoor space. So if you have a house again that is multiple stories, like a 2-story house, something like that, you can come out of there and have multiple elevations to your deck project as well.
Yeah.
To kind of get down to ground level. So if you're somebody who's got a budget, you're going to do a larger deck, breaking it up into different levels is usually smart and aesthetically pleasing and functionally appropriate and everything else. And so a lot easier to do with the deck to put multiple, like you can do that with the patio too, to a certain extent. But if you're coming off the second story, you can't. At some point deck's got to come first. Maybe part of that, maybe the last elevation is a patio.
That's what I was thinking. They meant by that was that, you can have multiple layers or multiple levels. And so obviously one is the deck.
Yeah.
That comes off the house. And then the second one is the patio. That's the second level.
Yeah.
Used for a different function, right? It's like you're going to put your fire table and seating and all that stuff down there. Up top, it's like eating.
Certainly.
That's how I envision that.
Number 3 is dealing with uneven terrain. Again, I'm not sure that I would have thought of this one by myself, but it's a completely valid one. But imagine you were in like a rocky area potentially, or just like you're on the side of a valley, like many of the lake and cottage country is here is on the side of a valley. It's like a huge slope.
Yep.
To do a patio would be a ton of excavation. And if you're in a place that has rocky soils or bedrock 6 inches below the soil line and you're on a slope, well, a patio may be next to impossible.
Yeah.
Really.
Out on the coast, right? Where it's all rock.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything.
You can build a deck over any type of elevation because you're not requiring any unearthing or grading or whatever of the ground. You just build above and float it above what's going on down below. So that's exactly what this says, is where the ground is uneven, rocky, sloped, constructing a deck can be less invasive and more cost effective than excavating for a patio.
Totally.
Less ground prep required and can be stored with posts to level the outdoor living space. See, that's such a great point. And number 4, I don't know if I like this one, but we're going to read it anyway. Temporary solution. So because they're less invasive to landscape, they might be preferred in situations where permanent solution is not desirable. So the only thing I can think of with this is like, we often will sell them to like seasonal campsites where you're wanting to put a deck in for maybe 6 months and then take it out again.
That's what I was thinking of too.
Could, I suppose, do a patio, but it's that's a lot more work.
Absolutely. And yeah, with the campsites, like sometimes you would want to pack that whole thing up, like fold up the deck, like break it into the 5x10 sections and stand it up. And then,
Yeah.
it doesn't sit in all the snow and rot. And
Another one where maybe this is a good answer is for like home builders where they're just putting on kind of a builder deck in the backyard and it's just kind of meant to be either like a safety thing where they have to build something there.
Lots of them do those little temp stairs, right?
Or a little bit 8x8 deck. They're doing it just so the house can be sold with a deck on it, but you know damn well that it's coming off and they're going to do something more appropriate there.
Yeah.
Like I suppose that could be a scenario too where that comes into play.
Certainly. Yeah.
And the final one I'm going to read because again, this is a little bit odd, but easier to navigate. For homes with accessibility considerations, decks can be customized more easily with ramps instead of stairs, providing a seamless transition from indoors to outdoors. This can be especially important to those with mobility issues. So that's a fairly good point, I guess. Not that you can't do a slope with a patio, but certainly if your door is coming out 4 feet up.
Yeah. I was going to say 3, but regardless.
4 feet up above grade, then it's a lot easier to build a ramp.
Yeah, then it's all retaining walls and tons of fill, and that's not the best.
Yeah, not impossible with patio, but easier. So that's what it says. It says easier. So
yeah,
that's a good point. What else would there be something that you'd add yourself to that? That's 5 as per ChatGPT's input. But are there situations where you're like, oh no, deck would for sure be a wiser idea with that?
No, I think that covers all of it. The one I think about all the time is just like the height. So here we have basements under all of our houses. That's not common in every place in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our door thresholds, it's pretty common for that to be 3 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And so like we address decks because of an elevation.
Yeah, you get into the southern US and it's just like on slab a lot.
Yeah.
And so it makes very little sense to build a deck there. And there isn't many decks around there. It's like a lot of patios. So
in Arizona and Texas, it's usually just on grade.
So I guess that there you go. There's a reason if your door threshold is super low to the ground. Well, this is the reasons why to build a deck.
Yeah. Why to build a deck.
We'll get to that with the patio section.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is because I like aesthetically, it may give different options.
Yeah, I was thinking of the word texture, but sure.
Yeah. But I mean, there's more color options and composite decking and wood materials are just softer than concrete.
Yep.
Like, I know it sounds stupid because they're both hard, but there's a difference between walking and sitting and playing on, plastic or wood than there is concrete.
Yeah.
I know they're both hard. But
if your little boy's running across the deck and trips and falls and lands on your composite deck, he's fine.
Yeah.
He might be a little bit sore, but if he turfs it on hardscape, he scratched something.
Yeah.
Band-Aids are coming out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's also a maintenance component. There's more maintenance with the brick than there would be like, if you want true maintenance free, like not having to oil, stain or seal or anything, then composite decking plus aluminum railing can give that to you as well.
Yeah.
But
I don't think many people are actually sealing their pavers. Like, I feel like a lot of people treat that like,
yeah, maybe not, but then so then benefit to composite decking would be staining and fading. No staining and fading.
No staining or fading.
So you get that as well. Yep. The warranties, of course, too, would be longer than they would be in brick.
Absolutely.
So there are certainly more than 5, but
yeah, I think there's an opportunity to have a deck board that complements your house, and you know that in 10 years from now, that's still the one.
Yeah,
still the same color.
I would argue that these are easier, like a deck is easier to build as well for the average Joe with typical tools. So most people could build a deck with a skill saw and a drill. And you might need much else than that.
Correct.
But as soon as you start doing patio, like you're probably going to need some equipment that the average Joe doesn't have sitting in the garage. The excavation and the prep work process, or even cutting the brick.
Like if you want to DIY the excavation, that's a lot of digging.
Right.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah. So depending on where you are, maybe it's not that easy to dig the piles for the deck either, I guess, but regardless.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll get on to the 5 reasons now why to build a patio instead of a deck. These are 5 reasons or scenarios. So number 1 is ground level integration. Who knew? Hey, all we have to do is wait to get there.
Yep.
Patios are ideal for homes that emphasize ground level living spaces. They offer seamless extension of your home's indoor space to the outdoors, particularly when the backyard is flat. Patios can blend naturally with the landscape, creating a cohesive look between the home and its surroundings. I think this is obvious. This is the most obvious one. It's like, this is where decks don't work that great because, like you said, well, I mean, there's materials you can use that are different, but most decks are built with treated lumber, and putting that in the ground is like, unless you're going to get some critically treated lumber that's.
But even that, the stuff that's like a PWF,
steel or aluminum or something, but
then
it's going to cost you infinitely more.
Yeah,
to do that. But so, as from a cost perspective, a ground level, the patio wins every time.
From a cost perspective, patio
if you combine
always,
cost with longevity,
always less.
Yeah, if you're going to do a full treated deck in the ground, deck boards and everything, probably less money, but longevity would become an issue.
Yep.
Number 2 is durability and longevity.
Look at you and your foreshadowing.
Patios, particularly those made from concrete, pavers, or stone, can last for decades with minimal maintenance. They are not susceptible to wood rot or termite damage, which can affect decks over time. This makes patios a more durable option in many climates.
There you go. I always forget about the termites. It's not an issue here.
It's not an issue here. You get the odd carpenter ant here, but nothing even that, not that it causes structural concern for buildings in this market.
Yep.
But certainly in some areas, that is absolutely
Oh, yeah. Right? Yeah, very much reality.
Number 3 is cost effective for large areas. If you're looking to cover a large area, patios can be more cost effective than decks. Materials like concrete or pavers can be less expensive than wood or composite materials typically used for decks, especially when considering larger foundation requirements for decks.
Yep.
There's no doubt that if you start talking about base and stuff too, but if you're talking about just the pavers, you can get some of those things, and we're talking Canadian dollars here, but you could get some for $6 a square foot, $5-6 a square foot. Of course, it can go up from that, but composite decking is I guess it starts not too much above that, and would be cheaper, but that's just for the decking. If you can include the whole project, where it's the excavation, the fill, and the base prep, and the pavers, it's generally going to be less money than a deck that requires the piles and the framing and the deck and the railing,
correct,
whatever else. Generally going to be lower costs. So that's definitely a pro. Heat resistance in very hot climates. Stone is number 4. Stone or concrete patio can be cooler to the touch compared to wood or composite deck. Materials like concrete and stone do not retain as much heat, making patios a more comfortable option during peak summer months.
Yeah, and the other part is they may not reflect back as much heat, right? There's always that, the heat that hits the decking then gets bounced back up, and I feel like the concrete absorbs a lot of that, right?
Yeah, it's a more porous surface, so I think that would probably help a little bit. Yeah. When guys walk on lava rock that's been sitting in the fire, and they can, and the reason is because there's lots of air pockets in it. So it doesn't, the surface temperature isn't as high. And I wonder if that concrete being a little bit more porous than a plastic slab, might play into that for sure. So certainly can be. And then local regulations and permits. So this is a good one I probably wouldn't have really considered or thought of either, but you may be in an area where this deck requires a permit. And if it does require a permit, that you may be in an area that has a really stringent, long, drawn-out process, or it can be pricey. We're not too bad here, but some markets are tougher.
It can certainly be tough.
And you almost never need a permit for a patio. You may need, depending on some areas, or I don't know if you're close to a wildlife area or something like that, you may need an excavation permit or something potentially, or a disturbance or permit or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, much less often are you going to need a permit for a patio hardscape area than you would a deck.
Yeah. So, and some of the reasons that you might get shut down on, when you build on a site is they want to make sure that your site allows enough water on there, right? You're allowed to retain a certain amount of water on that area and can't pave it to have it run off. But a patio still works for that, because you can just guide it to the one side or to the edge of.
Yeah. And if you do have drainage requirements, you can get permeable pavers as well.
Absolutely.
Because some places do have restrictions or requirements around that as well. So you have that option. Of course, the decks are going to pass water as well. But any reasons that weren't mentioned here that you would say pro patio versus a deck? Yeah.
And so again, probably that elevation thing. So when we see it the most is that people are trying to get off of a deck down below, because we have so many houses that are just row houses. So everybody's out at the same height, and everybody's deck is up above the fence line. And so, that's it. Different textures. I think when you start to look at the whole backyard and you can envision and mix different textures, I think you can actually really, really liven up a whole backyard.
Yeah.
And so
I also think that patios and brick and stone and concrete do blend well with nature a little bit better than a deck does.
Sure.
You can integrate, maybe it doesn't look like it was naturally there, but you can integrate it with the greenery and the shrubbery and the grasses and whatever else, integrate it a little bit more cleanly or tightly than a deck that's built above all that stuff. It just interfaces with nature a little bit easier or better or more naturally. So I do like that as well. I think say it again.
better around fire tables. So if you're going to
Sure.
have an actual fire table as opposed to the propane one.
Fire ratings at all, if you're in an area, I guess would be a big pro patio,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yep.
in an area that requires like, class A fire rated decking and framing, whatever, that can get pretty pricey.
Certainly.
It's not a concern for concrete blocks.
Yep.
So that's definitely a big one. I think like my perfect backyard has a blend of both.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be either or, but you like the best projects out there have both.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And they've come a long ways, right? The pavers used to be like, they weren't as good as they are now. It used to be kind of like tumbled pavers that were quite porous. And now they're, between Belgard and Teckle Block, they all have basically a sealed surface, and it's smooth and like it.
yeah,
It's a polished,
more vibrant colors,
finish, better
like a dirt
colors,
fusion
right?
top, whatever. So yeah, and that could be said for decking as well. Composites come a long way in the last 10, 20 years as well. Like both have made some good advancements. So
Yeah. And so they work well together. Like you can tell that that some paving companies are working with decking companies. Not like maybe they're not working super closely, but they're definitely looking
Following
at each
the same
other color
trends.
palettes, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And they're blending the yard. Nice. So,
Yeah. So that's that. A good conversation. Maybe we used to just, there's some guys out there like F decks. What's this? It was Paver King.
Patio.
Paver King, I think his name is.
Oh, yeah.
Instagram.
Paver King in Ontario.
Does
Yeah.
t-shirts. It's like F decks.
He's so
We don't have
funny.
to be offended anymore.
No.
We can be like, yeah.
Yeah. F that. Well,
F
not
the-
all of them.
F the patios too. F both of them. So anyways, that's it for that. If you have any feedback or comments on it, just reply or send us a message, and we won't read it, but can all pretend we care, right? Until next week, folks, I hope you have a wonderful week.
Hey, thank you for listening to the Ultimate Deck Podcast. Now you know what we're about. Check the site, come and shop. UltimateDeckShop.com. Hit us right away for sponsorships, or tell us if you want to collaborate. Let's go. Check us out on any social networks. Thank you for listening.